Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Corman Productions, here to do another rewatch video of This Is Us, Season 1, Episode 4, The Pool, a very popular early Season 1 entry in the series, and for good reason. I don't think it's quite as good as the previous episode, Kyle, which there's no shame in. Kyle was the series firing on all cylinders and hit highs that this episode doesn't quite reach. It's marred somewhat by a Toby and Kate plotline that I didn't particularly care for and that I found very cringeworthy, to the point where I was almost going to ignore it completely, but there's an end scene to that particular thread that makes it worth talking about. This episode is case in point for why I found some of the criticisms of the season premiere of Season 5 to be invalid. Racism and racial issues are dealt with in both the past and the present timelines of this episode. Like I said, the show has done that since the beginning, and I'm not entirely sure why people had a problem with it. So without further ado, let's dive into The Pool. We open in the past timeline. The kids are about 8 on a hot summer day. Jack enters the scene wearing a Florida Man shirt that Rebecca can't stand, and he makes a dramatic show of suggesting that they go to the pool for some fun. Randall suggests a specific place to go swimming, and I watched it a million times and I can't quite catch what he's saying. But his suggestion will come into play later, specifically why he makes that suggestion in the first place. Jack says he packed a cooler with no beer because he's quit drinking. This is on the heels of the last time that we saw this pair in episode 2, where he decides to quit drinking. He's excited about going to the pool for the day to relax. Rebecca laughs in skepticism. She knows the truth. So do I. After briefly seeing them at the pool, we cut to the present day. William is helping Annie with her hair. Tess notices a scar on William's arm and asks him about it. William tells a story about working with the Urban League in 1986 or 1987. The story draws Randall's interest. The story definitely draws Randall's interest, but it's hard to make out exactly what he's thinking. But something is bothering him about this story. Kevin calls Randall via video chat to let Randall know he's in New York, and is pretty much forced to do the Manny voice by the girls. During the conversation, Randall notices William, who's decided to go outside for a walk, being talked to by the police. He quickly hangs up on Kevin to go intervene. We cut to William, who is clearly getting agitated by this conversation when he's having with the cop. He's telling him that he will not show the cop his ID until he tells him a good reason to do so. This is when Randall intervenes and lets him know that this is his father. Randall tells the cop that William has been staying with him and apologizes, which William does not react well to. He seemed angry that Randall apologized. The neighbors, who are now observing the scene from a distance, apologized to Randall, saying they didn't know. And Randall says he understands, but I'm not sure that he actually does. Or he does, and it's just not in the way that the neighbors think that he understands. Randall will spend the rest of this episode chewing on his liver about what happened here. William will be over this incident within 5 minutes. This reaction is one of the reasons why Randall was my favorite character back in Season 1. why I related to him so much. Because I would basically react in the same way. Not to this instant, because this wouldn't happen to me. I'm not a black man. But when something bad happens, like this instance, I also would end up chewing on my liver about that incident for quite some time. And this highlights a very big difference between William and Randall. Randall is a dweller, and William very much is not. Cut to Toby and Kate, whose scenes this week I'm going to be giving a very short shift. They are eating at a restaurant where Toby runs into his ex-wife. Kate asks him about it out of curiosity, and she is pretty shocked as his ex-wife is pretty good looking. Kate spends the rest of the episode acting like a crazy person, going as far as to stalk his ex, and eventually somehow ending up with a job from her. We'll talk about this again when we get to their final scene. I cringed through most of Kate's scenes this week. And credits. I brought this up in the first 3 Rewatch episodes, but before the credits start is about 7 minutes of a cold open. This Is Us as a series just seems to have really long cold opens, trying to launch all the stories that are going to unfold before them beforehand. They are gradually getting shorter though. When we return from the credits, we are back in the past timeline with the kids at the pool. Kate's acting goofy and is told to come get sunscreen on by her mother. She notes a few kids that she knows, whom she loudly greets. They do not seem happy to see her. Kevin is complaining that he doesn't like swimming. His mom tells him that he should just stay in the shower area with Randall. He then says that he doesn't like Randall either. He gets reprimanded by his parents, but this is pretty consistent with what we have seen of him. The tension between brothers is a series-long thing. But we do get some more insight into how Kevin feels in this episode. In the second episode of the series, which is the first time that we saw these younger actors, we just kind of see Kevin as a brat. But we get to see a little bit more here that suggests that it's just more than Kevin being a brat. When it's Randall's turn to apply sunscreen, he asks if he even needs it. And Jack, hilariously unconvincingly by the way, says that he absolutely does. He doesn't have a clue. Neither does Rebecca. I didn't know the answer to this either, so I ended up looking it up, and apparently this is a pretty common search request because before I even finished typing it in, it suggested that very question. And yes, as it turns out, and this is a spoiler alert, black people do indeed need to wear sunscreen. Now I know what you're thinking. You just learned so much from watching my videos. Rebecca calls after Kate, suggesting that she might want to put on a shirt. She tells Jack that some kids are going to say something about her swimsuit. Jack just shrugs it off as being baby fat. He's generally unconcerned, and I gotta ask, if she had that concern, why didn't she say something back at the house before they even got to the pool? She then brings up Kevin's attitude as of late and his jealousy of Randall, and Jack insists that they are all going to be fine. Famous last words. Meanwhile, in the present-day timeline, Kevin is headed to an audition for a play and trying to stop Kate from self-sabotaging via phone, which she is totally not going to do. His audition does not go well. The star of the play, Olivia Maine, is not enamored with him, and he bombs. Randall has decided to take William to a clothing store so that he doesn't look quite so out of place in the neighborhood, and they might avoid future incidents with the police. The incident from that morning is still very clearly on Randall's mind. And I'm pretty sure that William isn't thinking about it at all. This is entirely Randall's issue. He thinks William is judging him for how he handled the cops that morning, for not experiencing what it is truly like to be a black person having been raised by a white family, for having a hose turned on him while protesting. He points out everything he notices that is clearly happening in the store just because he's black. He says that every day he has to let these things go to avoid being constantly pissed off. William listens to every word he's saying and says nothing. I don't see judgment in his face at all. All I see is empathy. This entire conflict is in Randall's head. Back at the pool, Kevin is trying to get his dad's attention as they keep losing track of the kids. Kate gets a not nice note from the kids that she knows, and for his efforts to get attention, Kevin just gets yelled at for the crime of not keeping track of his brother. I found that a little bit odd, in that it's not really Kevin's job to keep track of Randall. I would understand if Kevin was older than Randall, but he's not. They're the exact same age. So my sympathy started to shift a little bit to the younger Kevin, in a way that it hadn't up to this point. Present day Kevin runs into Olivia, who he feels the need to tell her that he's not as bad as he seemed, but does point out that she wasn't super helpful. And in response, she invites him to get a drink. Randall is going to an event for one of the kids in the present day timeline. William and Randall are walking together, and as they do so, Randall is rambling on about how good the school is throughout the entire scene. And I'm not sure what he's trying to accomplish or why he's saying anything that he is. It seems more, once again, Randall thinking that William is judging him, but this doesn't play into anything that Randall has expressed concern about throughout the episode. So once again, I don't know what he's doing here, and from the look on William's face, neither does he. In the past timeline, Rebecca still can't find Randall. She sees Kate and doesn't notice the note that Kate is glumly reading. I gotta say that this episode does not represent a very good showing for Jack and Rebecca as parents. Not to say that I would do much better under the circumstances, but this is another subtle deconstruction of the idea that Jack and Rebecca were perfect parents. This was not their finest hour. Finally, she sees Randall playing with some black kids, and these kids are the reasons that Randall suggested coming here in the first place. Rebecca goes to retrieve him and is told by one of the mothers of the children that it's okay. She's watching them. The character's name is Yvette, and she is played by Ryan Michelle Bath, who is Sterling K. Brown's wife, in case you didn't know. She only appeared in 4 episodes of the series, and it's been a while since we've seen her. I'm not quite sure why, but according to her filmography on Internet Movie Database, she's not exactly hurting for work. So that's probably why we don't see much of her. Rebecca introduces herself, but Yvette says she knows who she is, saying, when a white family with a black child comes and doesn't introduce themselves to any of us, we tend to notice. Yikes. But to be fair, I didn't see Rebecca introduce herself to anyone. She was too busy freaking out about where the kids are. Rebecca says Randall isn't supposed to be over there. The woman says nothing, just smiles at her. Rebecca then corrects herself, saying that she meant he is supposed to be where they can where she can see him. Rebecca just keeps putting her foot in her mouth while the woman just keeps smiling at her, not really helping any. She tells Randall it's time to go, and tells the woman it was nice to meet her, and starts to walk away, and then circles back to make it clear to the woman that Randall's her son, she's got him, she doesn't know if the woman has a problem with that arrangement, but doesn't care. This is more assuming judgment that wasn't specifically stated and might not be there. I kind of believe there was at least some. Now, Rebecca's reaction is born quite a bit out of insecurity and the knowledge that there is judgment out there about Randall being her son. Yvette calls after her and says that she needs to get the boy a proper haircut with a black barber because of the razor bumps on his neck. She needs someone who can cut black hair. I have to say that neither woman really behaves great here. Emily Post would not be proud. In the present day timeline, we see Randall's family watching the show. Randall looks over at William conflicted, and William is just enjoying the show, completely not thinking about the things that Randall is torturing himself about. Cut to Olivia and Kevin having their drink. Olivia tells him that he should go back to LA. She's seen actors from movies or television come out to New York who's never had a real moment in their lives try to make it, and they aren't able to. I was a little confused by what she meant by not having a real moment. Did she mean in acting or in life? If she meant the latter, that's a bit presumptuous, and it isn't true. She gets a text, and apparently he got the part, because they think the Manny will sell tickets. In the past timeline, Kevin is still being ignored. Rebecca is telling Jack about the woman she met, and Jack suggests that maybe she was just trying to be helpful. I'm inclined to think that's the case, but the way the tension in their relationship made it so that that message had no chance to be received that way. Bonds by condescendingly telling me how to raise my kids? No thank you. Kevin starts to trying to get a football in the pool, and slowly but surely finds himself literally over his head. He can't swim. He's struggling. Only just manages to avoid getting into real trouble by grabbing onto the rope. At the surface, he's gasping for air. Neither one of his parents notice, nor do any lifeguards for that matter. But that's beside the point. Present day Kevin is reenacting that for some reason. Not sure why. Is that in reaction to Olivia's criticisms of not having a real moment? And by the way, this is further demonstration of Kevin's codependent issues. One of the symptoms of codependency is poor boundaries. Somebody makes a criticism of you, you don't see that just as their opinion. You take it personally. It hurts. More so than if the average person would get that criticism. Olivia criticized Kevin, and he's taking it completely to heart. Now again, if she meant that he hasn't had a real moment in his life, that's not true, because he had the death of his father to contend with. But we don't know that yet. We still have no clue about the whereabouts of the present day Jack. In the past, Jack discovers the note that was written to Kate. It pisses him off, and he's about ready to charge into action. Rebecca stops him, telling him that he will only make matters worse. And she's right. I am curious as to what Jack intended to do in the first place. Kevin comes in hot, yelling at them about almost drowning. He angrily tells them they never watch him. Jack tells him to watch it, but Kevin's anger here is completely justified. He says that they are too worried about making sure that Kate doesn't eat too much or that Randall isn't too adopted. Where's Kevin? "Oh, he died." Kevin storms off. This is the most direct that he's been with his anger. You want to know what his problem is, Rebecca? He just told you. Most of the time, his feelings get channeled into acting out. Jack goes after him and apologizes, and tells him that he's trying, that it's his first time with everything. He should have been there, and he's going to be from now on. Kevin accepts this and hugs his father. And honestly, Jack never really lives up to this promise. Rebecca approaches Yvette from earlier, who's sunning, and asks if she has the name of a barber. She's swallowing her pride a little here to ask something of a woman who actually could help her, and maybe making up a little bit for her earlier behavior. The woman says that she does. Rebecca asks if she could have it, and the woman starts writing it for her. She offers another nugget of advice about putting lotion on Randall when he gets out of the pool, otherwise he'll get ashy. Rebecca asks if her son can play with her kids sometime after school. The woman happily agrees. Rebecca asks about the sunscreen, which makes the woman laugh. He does indeed need sunscreen. Glad to have that mystery solved. Though I already solved that mystery because I looked it up. But I have Google. They did not have this back then. She asks him if she could tell Jack, as if Jack didn't believe that Randall needed it. Though, to be fair, Jack didn't express skepticism at that. He said that Randall probably did, while being completely clueless about it. Meanwhile, Jack goes to comfort his daughter. He offers her the Florida Man shirt and tells him the story of a drifter who was being harassed. Jack chased off the harassers, and in response, the Florida Man gave him the shirt and said it was magical, that the wearer be seen by their enemies exactly the way they wanted to be seen. Jack mentions that he was wearing that shirt the day he met her mother, which is actually borne out in the first episode of season 3 that shows Jack and Rebecca meeting for the first time. Kate says that she will go with Princess, and Jack tells her that he wants her to know he already sees her that way. Cut to the final Kate and Toby scene of the episode. Toby has just learned that after stalking his ex, Kate got a job with her. And Toby is not pleased, to put it mildly. Kate tries to defend her position. She's better off not, because she is wrong. She is just straight up wrong. Her actions in this episode were that of a crazy person. Kate asks him if Josie, his ex, is what he wants. Specifically, if he wants to date a skinny person. He comes back with, "No, but I would like to date a sane person," and Kate responds that that isn't very nice. It might not be nice, but it is very, very accurate. Toby finally tells her that Josie was terrible to him. He points out that Josie, the skinny person that Kate seems to admire so much, cheated on him and lied to him, and then took half of his life savings. In the wake of their divorce, he gained 95 pounds. Toby is what he is today because of that relationship. He admits considering suicide in the aftermath. At first he plays it off as being a lie that he told his brother, but then admits that he was in fact considering it. which plays into the depression issues that we eventually learn about Toby. He tells her all this to get it into Kate's mind that she hasn't cornered the market on problems, that he also has issues. She apologizes, finally, which is the approach she should have taken in the first place, but whatever. She mentions that her issues are not going to go away overnight, and he says, well, neither am I. It's pretty generous. If it were me, I would be running at this point. But don't worry, Toby will get his turn to be the insufferable one in the next episode. We have one final scene between William and Randall that finally gets to the heart of the matter, of Randall's problem for the entire episode. William tells him that Randall thinks that he is judging him, and William says that he is in no position to do so. He says that if he were in a position to judge him, he would be getting a very high score. Randall brings up the story that William told at the beginning of the episode to the girls. He asks William if he was clean at that point. William says yes, and he tells him that at that same time, Randall had a little book that he wrote in every time he met a black person. He would put a mark. And every time he met a black man, he wondered if somehow this man could be his father. But he couldn't say that. He couldn't say that out loud because he loved his father. He says that he's a very successful black man and that he and his wife put a lot of thought into how they raise the girls. And the fact that Tess thinks nothing of playing Snow White is everything to him. And he will not apologize for the way he raises his family. William says that he shouldn't, and Randall comes back with he doesn't. And William says simply that he should apologize. He says that he's known Randall for 3 weeks, and he still hasn't said the words. Randall tries to tell him that he doesn't need to, but William ignores him. He is deeply sorry. He did everything wrong by Randall, and Randall has done everything right. Excellent scene. These actors and characters are just absolutely magic together. It's a shame that the pairing only lasted 1 season. And that's when Kevin arrives at Randall's door. He was at the hotel room all by himself, and Kevin is very much like a shark. If he stops swimming for even a moment, if he has to consider or look at himself or risk the moment of feeling pain about his past, he will die. Not literally, of course, but I believe that this need to keep swimming drives a lot of his actions throughout the series. Because Kevin really doesn't want to confront himself. He doesn't want to confront the pain that he feels. But we will explore that at another time. So that, ladies and gentlemen, was The Pool. A fan favorite of the series, and absolutely deserving of that. Definitely a very good episode. It does have some problems, mostly on the Kate and Toby side, which is why I did not spend too much time talking about that. But at any rate, that's all I have to say about this particular episode. If you like this video and want to support the channel, you can go to my Corman Productions store on Zazzle. You can follow me on Twitter at Core Productions, or join my Facebook group page where you will get regular updates on videos that I am considering doing at Corman Productions. And as always, you can like and share this video, as well as subscribing to my channel. I'll see you guys next week when we look at the 5th episode of Season 1, The Game Plan. This is Dave from Cormorant Productions, signing off.